All right, what's up, guys? Today we're talking emotional control.
Yes, we are.
This is a big one, and if you've never worked for yourself, you've never had crap go wrong time after time after time. I feel like working for yourself is the best way of getting better at this.
You are forced, yes. But
yeah, it sucks, and it's very hard at first.
Totally, but you can learn it in your day-to-day and anything that you do. You'll find, you can tell people's emotional control by their waistline. You can tell their emotional control
That's
by their
interesting.
bank balance.
That's very interesting.
You can see, that gives you a gauge of their emotional control. Like how they look at the moment of immediate gratification, right? Do they have the control in that moment when they're like, I'm trying to lose some weight, I'm trying to cut some fat, whatever, and my friends are going out for donuts. That's where the emotions rise, like, ooh, and then you either just kind of go with it or you control that emotion, and you say, I'm going to let that go. I'm sorry, I can't, guys. Right? That's controlling your emotions.
And that's one way of doing it.
That's one way. Every decision that you make is not we don't make a lot of rational decisions. We make a lot of emotional decisions.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer. It's not necessarily what happens to you, it's the way you react and what happens to you.
Totally.
And that an example comes to mind is you leave your wallet on your car seat. Your car gets broken into, your wallet gets stolen. Mm-hmm. Two ways of approaching that. Hey, you can tell the next 50 people, oh my God, my life's so bad, my car got broken into, my wallet got stolen. Or you're like, hey, I shouldn't have left my wallet on my car seat, I'll never do that again. And you move on. Yep. Full stop. You never talk about it again.
Yeah.
Because if you keep talking about something, what happens? It just keeps it fresh in your mind. You never get past it.
Sure, you waste a whole couple days.
Weeks, months. Some people will talk about it for the next 12 months.
Yeah, or if that happens often, right, there's those people that always have something they're complaining about, right? Because you start developing a habit of feeling like that's how you connect with people. And little by little, everyone's like, man, that Brendan guy just always complaining about something. And then you wonder why no one wants to hang out with you. And then it starts to snowball, right? So emotional control really is if there's one thing you can learn or that would take you to another level and make your life way better, it would be emotional control. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control what you eat, you can't control how you feel, like when someone is upset with you, you can't control what you say.
Yeah, how you react.
You can't control anything in your life because you are letting your emotions control you.
And I'm sure you can relate to this when something bad's happened to you and you speak and you say stuff you shouldn't, in a relationship, in business, and you say stuff that you shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
And once it's said, you can't take it back.
You cannot, yeah.
But what I learned, the more it happens to you, and I'm quite proud to say now that I can just take it in, not react, take my time, maybe take a day or two before I react.
Sure.
And be doing that, you don't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
But have you done stupid stuff where you reacted?
Of course.
It's how you learn, right?
I have kids,
shouldn't have said that.
I still do stupid stuff sometimes. Yeah. Like, man, and then now though, the difference is I'll go to my daughter and I'll let her know, hey, I'm sorry, I was a little grumpy, I didn't eat, whatever, I apologize, I shouldn't have said it like that, I should have been a little more patient with you. And then, we move on and I say, I love you. And, you're going to make mistakes. That's not the issue. The issue is are you able to at least be aware, oh, dang, I shouldn't have said that, right? And
hey, I'm about to say this.
Yeah.
And I know by saying this is going to make this situation 10 times worse and 10 times longer. Or I can learn to shut my mouth, take my time and respond. And it's us. I also feel like it's an ego thing too. Someone attacks you, you want to defend yourself, you want to attack them back. Yeah. And sometimes you just got to, especially in business, suck up your ego, let it go.
Yeah, all the time in business, yeah.
And when you can do that, it makes your life so much simpler.
Yeah, the ego is one of those things that actually gets more in the way of everything than actually helps.
It's insane, right? Yeah. I've read some good books on ego. And it's if you're driving along the road, you're doing, say, 65 on the highway, and someone overtakes you, and you start speeding up, you're like, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
Why do we do that?
Yeah.
Why does it affect you what the other person's doing? It shouldn't, and it's no point of it, but you know what I mean? Everyone does it.
I mean, I feel like it's probably was a survival thing back in, when we were first kind of living and surviving and having to, you know, battle animals and fight for women and stuff like that.
Now it's stupid.
But now it's stupid.
It's an ego thing.
I think it still helps in some ways. You know, there's probably some pride and there's some like stuff like that that is in there. But you definitely have to kind of remember that the ego is there to serve you and not, you know, you serve it. So the moment that the ego is making the decisions for you on how you're going to react, well, then it's in control. Right? And
that's a good way of putting it.
That's where your emotional control starts to kind of come in, right? And as you get better at emotional control, guess what happens? Your ego starts to kind of fade away and it just kind of gets quieter, right? And it's just kind of back there. And then now it's just kind of proud and it's just happy when it's happy. And it'll do things to preserve your life probably, but it won't, you know. For example, if you're walking to the edge of a cliff, you know, and you feel your body kind of pulling back like, ooh, I don't want to step that far out. That's your ego kind of helping you preserve your life, right? Like, I don't want to die, bro. Like, you know, like, what are you doing? So that's part of that preservation, which I think is very useful, right? If we didn't have that, people would just be like, oh, and just fall off cliffs and no one would have that self-preservation. But
sorry, ego.
But it doesn't help you in other ways, right? It will hurt you really bad. You know, if you're in a business meeting and someone's threatening what you know about whatever business and you're in the middle of some kind of deal and it, you know, depends on how the outcome is and how everyone gets along and they're threatening you or whatever and they're making you feel like you need to defend yourself and your ego could ruin some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas if you just kind of checked yourself and thought about what they're really saying and listened to them and then you're like, you know, and then
putting yourself in their shoes.
And then you really kind of explained your story and your situation, you know, calmly and structured and everything, and all of a sudden, it could be a whole different outcome.
Yeah, the more I've got better at, the more I've like, it could be a phone call, and I'm listening, and I'm like, if I say this is going to lead here. If I don't say this is going to lead here, and this is an easier, better path. Or if someone hasn't paid me, I'm like, I can say this, I'm never going to get paid.
Yeah.
Or I suck it up. I leave my ego, I don't act on emotions, and hey, I'll figure out how to get paid this way. And it works. It works really well. I just got paid by a client. It took me probably 5 months, but I didn't react.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was 5K. It took me like 5-6 months to get the 5K, but I got it all back.
Yeah.
Plus he paid me $300 extra because he screwed up. So it was perfect.
Yeah.
So by doing that and taking those right steps, it got me paid. If I reacted on emotion, I'd be 5K out of pocket right now. And that's just one little example. Another thing comes to mind too is learning to understand your emotions so you can grasp something and you can get through something. And what comes to mind is like a relationship. Like if something bad happens to you in a relationship, learning to deal with it, take it on, understand why you're feeling the way you are, and not masking it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying by that?
Yes, I do. And in Buddhists, what they would say is to hold your emotion like a crying baby. Like,
what does that mean exactly?
Like when you're feeling really angry, instead of like reacting, right? You have the awareness enough to know, like, dude, I'm really angry right now. You know, you feel it inside you welling up. And instead of saying, I'm not going to get angry, like, I'm not going to get angry, you just kind of think about your anger as a crying child. Like, what would you do if a baby was crying? You would pick up the baby. You would just kind of hold it.
Nurture it.
You would kind of rock it.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, shh, it's okay. Like, you know, it's okay. Like, you're going to be okay, you know. And just that alone, just like feeling the anger and going, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay. You're going to be okay. It's okay. And little by little, you realize, like, what am I even angry about? And then you start having thoughts, and then you start questioning it. And all of a sudden, you're healing that anger. You're like, wow, I must get angry. I only get angry when in this situation with my wife or whatever, and it must be something. And then you realize, in some weird connection has something to do with the way your mom used to wake you up in the morning or something, right? And like you start to realize that, and all of a sudden, you're healing this stuff. And some stuff you don't know where the hell it comes from, but
healing it being the word.
Yeah,
right?
you're healing it. You're actively like letting that stuff kind of like heal, and you're working on yourself.
Yeah, what comes like when I broke up with my ex, it was pretty bad. That was my neighbor, cheated on my wife, friend of mine, like just this really bad situation. And in the past, I would have started dating, I would have slept around, I would have done everything in my power to mask it.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, I didn't do anything for 6 months. I didn't date, I didn't sleep around, I didn't go drinking, I didn't go partying. I just took it on the chest and I dealt with it.
Yeah.
And by doing that, like it probably took about 6 months before I was able to like move on.
Sure.
But then when I moved on. I was through it. I was past it. I'd healed from it, and I was okay to move into the next relationship or do something new. And I feel like by not taking that on the chest and not doing that the right way, you're just masking it.
Yeah.
It's going to affect the next relationship. You're going to do stuff you shouldn't have done. You're going to start drinking, partying, all of a sudden your business is going to suffer.
You know what's a tough one to swallow is like, who were you, right, that these things would have happened to you?
That's
right.
Yeah.
So like that's the hard one for a lot of people to swallow too, is like, well, if you're getting cheated on, like, I'm not saying it's your fault, but like what?
But it is your fault in a way.
But it is your fault
for
in
sure.
a way. Like, was there red flags already that you just didn't pay attention to because you were too into whatever other thing?
And that's a hard pill to swallow.
It's a hard one to swallow.
Yeah.
And when you really start to analyze it, you start to realize like, man, maybe I was not good at picking somebody for me. Or what I think it usually is I felt that this is the kind of person I deserved right now. Because you didn't feel like you were worth somebody that was...
And everything that happens to you is your fault.
Yes.
In some
way.
In some way, right?
Some way.
And that's a tricky one.
And it's not 100%.
And that's also ego thing. No, I didn't deserve that. I'm too good. I just treated her right.
And you might have treated her right. You might have done all the things that, within your philosophy that felt like was correct. But, there was something in you that brought her to you and that you accepted in her. And like there's, when you start to really break it all down, you're like, man, I should have been aware of that. Like,
It's a tricky one though, right?
It's just a hard one to swallow.
Yeah.
But it's like the one that brings us the most healing too.
And guys not being like the emotional competitive female. That's even harder to really stop and think about.
It
That's
is.
not what guys do. It's not what a brute Australian guys do.
Yeah.
Like,
but we are just as emotional.
but
like,
we put on this persona and this.
Of course, we're indoctrinated from a young age to be men.
Yeah,
like,
exactly right.
I mean, all the cartoons we watch, to the shows we watch, to the superheroes, to the everything. Like men are men. They're tough, and the crazy thing is we have just as much emotion. We just kind of hold it in a little better. So I think that's in some ways what makes men better businessmen overall, or at least in history, in the past, has made us better, is because we could kind of swallow that stuff. Even if we were super stressed, we would kind of just suck it up, right? I think as a culture, everyone's getting better at that, but I think in that side, men, we kind of get shafted a little bit. Like no one really. You're just going to deal with it anyways, right? So
what's your thoughts on this? So like a manly man is someone who can fix a car, change tires, replace the light. And then you got someone like Gary Vee. He's like, why would I learn to change a light? Like I'm not talking about a light bulb. I'm talking about getting into electricity, do the electrical side of it. Why would I do that when I can pay someone else to do it? Because my time is more valuable.
Sure.
But I feel like a lot of females look at someone, hey, if you can't do that, you're not a man's man. You're not a real man. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is not every woman wants Gary Vee to be married to. Not every woman
But
wants
also
to
the other way around too, right?
Yeah, not the other way around. Some women want, just want a happy life. They want to have their kids. They want to be taken care of and everything happy and be able to buy their Starbucks and enjoy their life and go to the kids' soccer games and all that. And the husband to be able to, replace, the battery in her car and maybe fix some drywall or whatever. And like that would make her happy to feel like there's, they have this relationship, this cohesive, balance of. So,
I've noticed in the past,
because I don't see nothing wrong with that.
I'm not the handyman, and nor do I want to be. And it's nothing against someone who is, but I've got other passions, I've got other talents and other things.
Sure.
So therefore, I don't see a time of wasting 2 days trying to figure out how to do something when I can pay someone and have it done within an hour and done properly.
Sure.
But
would you agree that there are some basics that would be good to know? Like
absolutely.
Changing the tire.
I mean, I feel like
oil,
everyone should be able to do that.
Like knowing if your brakes are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Like little stuff. Like I think that is important. Just the simple stuff like, that you could do. Like that maybe would need to be done right away, and waiting for somebody to do it wouldn't be very ideal.
Yeah,
right?
I definitely feel like there's a balance. And I feel like everyone's going to like someone for a different reason. But I don't think there should be a general, hey, you're not a woman if you can't cook, or you're not a man if you can't do this. It's a pretty harsh stereotype.
Yeah, I think it's very stereotypical, and I don't think that's really It's not really practical. I do think that there's pretty much somebody for everybody. Like, I do think that. Like, if for some reason, like, and I think these are important things to really talk about. Like, if you're a woman and you are like attracted, or you get like excited, or you feel like sexually attracted to some guy but because he works on houses and stuff like that, well, like, that's cool. Like,
that's that love language, right?
Like, yeah, like it's like there's different love languages. I agree with that. Like, some women want to see them doing things around the house that makes them feel loved.
Yeah.
Right? And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Like, there's somebody out there that can do that. I just don't think that there's really, everyone's trying to put everyone in boxes, like.
Yeah, if you're a man, you're a man. You're a woman, you're a woman. This is what you should and could be able to.
Yeah, and then now, like, what is a woman? A woman decides what a woman is and all that.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, there's just too much, polarization with everything going on. Like, everything's just getting diluted, and like nothing means anything anymore. Like, we're like losing our own common language, like how we even talk to each other. Like, because we don't have defined terms anymore.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not a woman and I'm not a man, like, well, how do we distinguish the difference? Because we are different, right? We are different. I can't have a baby right now. I can't.
Not yet. So what do you think about emotions and eating and weight loss and falling off track? That's another side of it, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's like this, there's some feedback loops there. Like, right when you screw up and you got off track, then you kind of like, well, I'm off track, and then you're pissed off with yourself, or you're upset with yourself, and then you eat again, and you're upset with yourself again. You're like, I'm a loser. I'm such a loser. And
whereas I'm different.
Yeah.
If you tell me I'm looking fluffy, guess what? I'm on point tomorrow.
Yeah.
You just motivated the hell out of me.
Well, what I mean
is diet's on point. I'm
talking about like people, like when they screw up and they look at themselves in the mirror, right?
Yeah,
and they feel bad.
And most people are like that. But I mean, I'm different like that. You tell me I'm fluffy, I'm six pack a week later.
Me too. I get pissed.
I get pissed. It's like I'm out to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
But most people are going to fall off track, like you're saying, right?
And that's okay. Like the part that is, it comes down to that emotional control and developing. These are opportunities to develop emotional control. You got to just understand that when you mess up and you get off track, as they say, you just get back on. And then you just got to let go of whatever happened and just go like, whatever, like, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be. And then you just move on.
I like that. I'm not. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody is.
And I've talked to some successful people, and they're like, "Yeah, I've screwed up. I'm a human being.
Yeah,
everyone makes mistakes.
Totally.
And we won't make mistakes. We won't be human.
Totally. And what would be the fun in that? Like, sometimes the mistakes are the most adventurous things, and they're, strangely enough, are some of the things we remember the most. Like,
100% agree.
Yeah.
I can tell you my mistakes. I can tell you where things have gone wrong a lot more I can when things have gone right.
Yeah.
And they make for better stories. Yeah. They make for better memories, for sure.
Totally. And when people always like, oh, so what's going on with you lately? And I'm like, well, where do I start? Like, the first things that come to mind are like my challenges, right? Or the things that are difficult. Not the other stuff that's going awesome. Like,
if everything's gone sweet, you're like, not much. Like, just, this happened the other day.
Everything's good. Like, like, how do I, even when it's bad, it's good.
Yeah. Like,
I'm aware to at least.
Even with work, like, one of my big stories from last year, I was on a job, Colorado River, 10 miles up the river, 12 miles. We were supposed to go 12 miles. We made it 10 miles. The battery in the boat died. Nothing spare, no spare batteries. We floated for 6 hours, bouncing off walls for 6 hours before we got help.
Wow.
I remember that story for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I did so many things last year. That's the number one thing I remembered, because it was the thing that went the most wrong.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I had a guy out there for the first time working for me, and nobody got upset. We just accepted it. We didn't act on emotion. We didn't swear. We didn't curse anyone out. We just accepted the fact it was what it was.
And it became an adventure.
And it was solved when it was solved.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Well, and those are the stories that you would tell at a party, right? Like, those are the stories that are
That's
funny.
the story I tell everybody.
It's funny, right? Like, it's a great story now.
Yeah.
It's like we were not planning on going on a 6-hour adventure, but we did, right?
Like, it sucked, but it was what it was.
Yeah.
All right. So what else fits into emotions?
Emotional control. So, there's lots of different ways you can go about getting better emotional control. And
what are those ways?
I mean, I think that a bottom up approach would be like, meditating and like trying to open up that part of your mind that can kind of like just be more aware of the thoughts that are happening in your head.
Do you mean like if something's happened, take the time, stop, and then you can meditate and think on it before you react?
No, I mean just meditating in general to kind of build that awareness of watching your thoughts. Because what'll start to happen is when something happens to you that brings up the emotion, you won't be so quick to just let the emotion kind of run the show.
Okay.
You'll kind of come in, you'll be witnessing it arising in you, and you'll be like, huh, why is that? Oh, okay. And then you'll kind of at least process it. And you might not be perfect the first time. You might still be like, angry, but still kind of trying to work through it. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful moment.
Do you meditate on a consistent basis?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it for?
A long time. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I can honestly say I know it's one of the things I need to do, and I've done here and there, but it's never something I've developed on a consistent basis as a habit. But when I have done it, it's been very beneficial. But it's one of those, I've got a lot of good habits, but it's one thing, it's not a consistent habit.
It's because it's so easy to do. It's so easy not to do. Right? Like, it's like, well,
That's
I'm
interesting.
just going to sit there and like, it's just so easy to just, well, I'll just do it in a few minutes. And
when do you do it?
I try to do it in the morning.
Like first thing you get up?
Yeah.
How long do you do it for? How do you do it?
10 minutes if I don't have a lot of time.
Okay.
Sometimes 40 minutes if I can just kind of sit there. And
do you sit up? You get in bed? You got a certain room?
Yeah, I just sit on the ground, and I have a little meditation cushion that I bought from the monastery when I stayed there.
In your bedroom?
Yeah, I have it in the guest room right now.
Okay, and you shut the door, kids out?
Yeah, I wake up before the kids get up.
Okay, and gotcha. And that's just a habit. You do it every day?
Yeah, it's just for me.
Gotcha, that's awesome. What's the biggest things you get out of that? Besides obviously emotion and control.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest things are emotional control, a little bit. It just kind of helps with that. It just, it's just like eating right. It just makes you, or when you go to the gym, it just helps you eat better because you're like, well, I don't want to ruin it already. Like I went to the gym and I'm feeling good. And so naturally you try to make better choices. It's like that. It makes my morning a lot more calm. And I feel
calm being a good word, right?
Yeah, it's much more calm in the morning, and I feel a little more prepared because once the kids get up, it's kind of chaotic, right? You're like, you got to make food, you got to make sure, hey, Colby, get up, hey, go to the bathroom, hey, make sure you're dressed, don't forget to brush your teeth. All of a sudden everything's like chaotic, right? And if I have that time in the morning, I find that the rest of my day, once I kind of get them off to school and everything, I'm like a little more like ready to go.
Okay.
Whereas then
like you're prepping in a way.
I don't feel so like everything's so chaotic.
Okay.
And I feel a little more focused because it also gives me a moment to like think about like, well, what I got to get done today, and then I kind of like
That's interesting.
I think about
that's very interesting.
So what are my top 3 things? Because if I don't do that, the day can get away from you real quick.
Yeah, that's super interesting. What else has helped you get more in charge of your emotions? Like failing, doing stupid
journaling.
stuff?
That's one thing I'm trying to do more of is journaling.
Talk to me about that.
Just writing down like what's going on in my day, how I feel like I did. If there's things, like some guys will go and journal kind of twice a day. They call it like bookending their days, like you do a little journaling in the morning of just like, this is what I got to get done. This is what I want to do. Like, I'm feeling a little tired, whatever. Like you just kind of are, talking to yourself about what you want to get done today. You write a few things, 3 important things you got to get done. And then at the end of the day, you'll go like, all right, I did pretty good, or it got away from me. I only got one thing done, but hey, that was better than nothing. Whatever. You just kind of go through your day. And, if I have time at night, I like to meditate at night. It really helps me just sleep a lot faster and get to sleep faster.
Gotcha.
And I feel more peaceful. But sometimes I'm just so tired by the time we get everyone like from their sports and in bed and read stories that I'm too tired. Like I just go to bed.
One thing I can say is like getting better emotion control in relationships, especially in fights. I feel like you hold the power because you're in control.
Yeah.
I feel like as soon as you start yelling, screaming, even business, as soon as you kind of lose your temper, you lose control.
Sure.
You lose the power. And I feel like people struggle yelling and screaming at someone who isn't yelling and screaming back. You find that?
Yeah.
It's very hard to continue yelling and screaming at someone who agrees with you, who's just being rational. So I feel like it's a nice power to have. I don't necessarily like to say power, but it's a nice
it is. It's
skill or tool to have.
Yeah, and if you're actually like being conscious and mindful in your head, like you're actually really thinking about everything and you're trying to solve the problem.
Yeah, sincerely thinking about, sincerely reacting.
Yeah, like you're not just trying to like ice everybody like because you're so cool, but you're actually trying to just think and you really do feel for their pain and all that stuff, and then I think you're gonna find a way to fix it.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's a lot of power. That's the best word for it. I think it's power. That's real power, actually.
Yeah, just leaving that ego and just it's nice.
Emotional control, man. It's like it really will get you. It'll get you in a lot of places. It'll get you. It'll make you a lot happier.
And something else comes to mind too is like accepting the fact if you're in the wrong, admit it quickly and methodically. And that comes from How to Win Friends.
Yeah.
So if you're late for something, don't make excuses. Hey, I'm late. I should have left earlier.
Yeah.
Accepting the fact when you're wrong, admitting it quickly. And I feel like that's an emotional thing. That's an emotional power. And it will get you through things a lot. If I make some fluffy excuse to you see right through it. It's just making myself kind of feel a little bit better about it. But if I'm straight up about it, you respect the fact that I'm straight up about it. If you're the right person, you're just going to move on.
Yeah.
And that's hard, and it's sucking up your ego, but it also makes you more accountable, and it makes you less likely to do it again too.
That's right. Yeah.
And I feel like a person with integrity will do that a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's something I've learned to do a lot more now, is like, if I'm wrong, hey, I messed up. Like I literally double booked a job last night, and the first thing I did was like, hey, I double booked. I didn't make an excuse like, hey, I screwed up. I double booked. I'm sorry. It won't happen again.
Yeah.
What else can I do or say?
Yeah. That's exactly
it. Is what it is. Whether they use me again, that's my fault, right?
Yeah.
They probably won't, but that's my fault, and I deserve the consequences.
Yeah.
So,
But that's gonna, that alone, I bet you'll keep more clients and more people happy just from being honest.
Well, just the sheer respect, right?
Yeah.
And respect being a big part.
Yeah. No one wants to hear like, oh, like it was scheduled in this, and my app it went to a different app, and blah blah blah, and you're like, oh, okay, it doesn't change anything. Are you just because at that point you're just trying to make yourself feel better. You're not.
That's exactly
you're
what
not
I'm
helping
right?
anybody.
You're making yourself feel better. You're justifying it to yourself.
Yeah, and you never can, because you won't, because you ultimately know it was your fault, right? So like you're trying to convince the person who knows it's their fault. Like it doesn't make any sense.
That's something I have a real hard time with, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is texting out, copping out, sending some like cop-out text opposed to calling the person.
Yeah.
Because we didn't grow up with cell phones. Yeah. So we didn't grow up like texting out and canceling dates through a text or canceling business through a text. I would call the person. And then even today, I give people the respect of a phone call.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I feel like it still should be done that way.
I think so too. And, even now, I think it's funny because if you write a letter to somebody now, it means so much more than it used to.
Oh, absolutely. It does.
It's like you took the time, and if somebody doesn't feel like that's really cool that you wrote them a letter, then like they just aren't very appreciative of anything, of time, of people's time, because that's pretty cool when you can do something like that. And when you call, it's the same thing, but you can see it in the younger generations. Like they start with a snap, right? I got her snap. Or I got her snap. And then if it gets like to be like more of a closer friendship, let me get your number. Then it turns into the number. There's like these like layers of how close you can get to people, right? So crazy how that is. Where before we just kind of let everybody in, right? You just kind of like, here's my address or here's my phone number. And like,
if someone calls you now, you get upset, right?
Yeah,
it's weird. Or someone knocks on your door, like, oh, who's that?
Yeah.
Whereas like as a kid, everyone knocked at everyone's door. Yeah. Everyone called everybody.
Yeah.
It's a different world.
I think it's our view on time is different. And it's very strange because at the same time as everyone's valuing their time more, they don't really seem to value their time because they're like doing so many other things that don't matter. It's really strange when you really think about it. I haven't really figured that out, but my kid, obviously, like he's 17 and he doesn't want someone calling him. He's like, who's calling me? Like, what's going on?
Yeah,
right?
You see it firsthand.
Yeah, I see them that. But then at the same time, right, he doesn't want someone to call him because it's just because it's interrupting his time on social media. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, Yeah.
Yeah, whereas I would count down for my friends to call me because
Yeah.
that means we're hanging out and doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to summarize on emotions, it's like, from my point of view, it's learn to shut up.
Yeah.
Accept what's happening, whether it's relationship, it's business. Don't snap back. Listen to what they're going to say. Empathize with what they're going to say. Take it on. If you are fired up, you are upset, take your time. Whether that's calling back 10 minutes later, whether that's taking a day or two before you react. And doing it the right way, because knowing if you react, it's going to make things 100 times worse. And I've been there, you've been there. It doesn't help the situation. And if you learn to slow down, not act on emotion, take your time before you respond, you can actually create a better part. Like I said, you can get paid.
Yep.
You can keep that relationship. You can get that costume back, which I've been through, renting costumes. It's taken me weeks to get costumes back because I've said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Opposed to if I shut up, didn't act on ego, I could have solved the problem a lot quicker.
Yeah.
How would you summarize?
I would summarize emotional control as, if you want to, be in better shape, you're going to have to control your emotions on how you eat and how you feel about going to the gym.
I love how you're approaching on that angle.
Yeah. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to not want to go to the gym, especially if you're not in good shape. You're definitely not going to want to go to the gym, but guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to regulate your emotions, and you're just going to have to go anyway.
How do you do that, you think?
Well, you're going to
as far as exercise and diet and things.
You just start creating a habit to do it. You get sick of, you get so sick of
being sick
that you go and do it. Or you be real with yourself, because I don't really fall for the whole, I want to be healthy, I want to be in shape. No, you don't. There's I think it goes a little deeper than that. And I'll be honest. For me, when I take my shirt off, I want to feel sexy for my wife. Yep. When we're going to make love, I want to feel good in those moments, because those are the moments that it feels even the most awkward when you're not in good shape, right? You want to feel, because it's all about the sexuality and all that stuff. And you want to feel good and you want to feel great. I want to be when I'm running with my kids, I want to feel, so you got to find the thing that is going to get your ass there, whatever it is, to just eventually create that habit. If you can just kind of keep going, whatever your schedule is. And for me, I'd rather people go to the gym consistently every day for 30 minutes and not be super gassed out than going for 3 hours and trying to grind out a workout and say you're going to go 3 days a week for 3 hours. I'd rather people just go consistently. If you go every day, even for 15 minutes, you're going to get more working out in 1 year than somebody who goes 2 days a week. Yeah, for an hour.
And that applies to everything. That applies to do you see Johnny, who I had on recently? He reads 10 pages a day. 10 pages of a book a day.
Yeah.
First thing he does, wakes up, reads 10 pages.
That's awesome.
Does it consistently.
Yeah.
He goes, you read 10 pages a day, you read about 12 books a year. That's more. The average American reads less than one book.
Yeah.
That's his way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Emotional awareness is kind of figuring out how to get yourself to do it.
Creating that habit. Yeah.
And that's what works for me might not work for you, but you're going to have to figure out how to get there, and how to get that going. And, emotional control also goes towards finances, right?
That's a whole different word.
But it isn't. It's the same.
No, I mean, that's a whole different,
it sounds different, but it's
you can go so much depth on that.
Sure. In that moment, you're you know what?
Buyer's remorse, buying stuff.
I want to start investing. But, I need at least whatever to start saving $500 a month. And I'm buying Starbucks every day. It's probably almost $500 a month, right? So you're going to have that emotional control, where you get up in the morning, you got your habits of doing this and doing that and going by Starbucks and getting the sandwich. And all of a sudden you're you got to control that emotion. You're going to want to be pulled there. You're going to feel just this almost subconscious emotional pull.
Or you can go the other way, where people buy stuff, hey, I work hard, I deserve this.
Yes.
And that's a huge emotional thing. Or buyer's remorse. How many people buy stuff and they realize they can't afford it, or they're stuck with it?
Yeah,
or buying the car that they shouldn't have bought.
Emotional control. If you would have felt
I never even thought about touching on that.
Yeah, if you're at the dealership and you're you went in to buy a Prius and they're trying to sell you, an Audi, R8 or something. I'm just saying, that's a little extreme, but they're trying to upsell you, because that's kind of what happens when you're in the dealership. and you're emotionally like, this sounds awesome, oh my god, this is exciting, and you start rationalizing, well, I could do this, I could save more on this, and I could, because I can drive myself here, I got more time to do this, and all of a sudden you're like talking yourself into it, right? And then you sign up for it, and next thing you know, you're like, holy crap, like now I'm stuck with this.
It's so funny you say that, as I'm so much better financially because I've got emotional control of my finances now.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past I never had that.
Yeah.
Whatever, if I made $200 or I made $4,000 in a week, I would spend it.
Sure.
Wouldn't matter what I made, I'd find a way of spending it. And I deserve this, I'll work hard, you would justify it to yourself.
100%, yeah.
And now I've got emotional control on finances. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not buying new clothes. I'm not driving a car I can't afford. I'm not living in a place I can't afford. I'm in control. And it's took a long while to get there, but it's so powerful once you get there. And it's funny, I didn't even think about that angle, but it's so big.
And as crazy as it sounds, it starts with the simple stuff like an apple or a Snickers bar, right? You love the Snickers bar, you want to have the Snickers bar, but you're like, emotionally you want the Snickers bar because there's the sugar, it's going to get you all feeling good for a moment, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to have an apple. It starts with that. It really does.
You start thinking long term.
And then little by little, you're like, you start to get a little bit stronger emotionally. You're like, oh, I got choice. I'm going to go with this one. Right?
So
I'm going to go with this
mindset
one.
fits in fitness and finances, doesn't it?
It's just emotional control. It starts with that.
It's something I really think
with
about.
People, it goes to relationships. It goes to finances. It goes to health.
Big thing financially for me was, do I need it or do I want it?
Yeah.
And that's emotional.
It's a great question to ask. Yeah.
It's emotional.
It's triggering you to make an emotional choice.
Yeah.
And
when I really got in control of that, I realized that, do I need it or do I want it?
Yeah.
And even if something I need, I would still wait. And I might wait a month, I might wait 6 months before I would buy it. But then when I bought it, I'm like, I know I need this. I know this is going to add benefit to my business. I know I'm going to appreciate this because I waited, opposed to just because I can afford it, I'll grab it. Yeah. And something else I thought too is something I heard was if you can't buy 10 of them, you can't afford it. And I don't know what you think about that. I had a friend the other day, he's like, if I can't buy 2, I can't afford it. I'm like, dude, my strategy is 10.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's like, oh, damn. So that's another way I look at like emotional control.
Because not bad.
I mean, it's pretty extreme, but if you can buy 10 of them, you can definitely afford to buy one of whatever it is.
Yes.
And then it's not so much, hey, do I need it or I want it? It's like, I can actually afford it.
Sure. And you're referring to like clothes, like a shirt or a jacket.
It could be a computer or something, $2,000 computer or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be even a car for that matter. A car might be a little bit extreme, but
yeah, because I mean, 10 of them. I mean,
yeah, I mean, $30,000 car, but you got 300,000. You're not really questioning it, are you?
No, you're not. But
it is a little extreme. But it is just these little things that I use personally to kind of keep myself in check.
Yeah, that's a great little tool.
And that's what works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, emotional control. I cannot recommend getting control of it enough. Reading will definitely help with that.
Anything you can find on emotional control.
Experience will help with that. And just learning to shut up
pick
sometimes.
The apple. Yeah, just shut up and take the apple instead of the Snickers.
I like that. That's a good close.